Okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you. All right. Let me see everything's in good. Okay, you're good. Have a good meeting.
All right, great. Thank you, Pablo.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, it's 7:05, and so I would like to call the meeting to order. Let me just update my note. Let's see, I am Deb Trappis, the chair of the Community Board 8 Traffic and Transportation Committee. I normally go through housekeeping of how the meeting runs, but I think everybody on this call knows how the meeting runs, so I'm going to skip that part. As a reminder, if you're on Zoom, to raise your hand, select reactions at the bottom of the screen. If you're on the phone, *6 to mute, unmute, *9 to raise your hand or to lower it. And I have done attendance. Kelly, Ed, and Chris, you're all three here. I believe Georgia is not here. Georgia, are you on the call?
I do not see her.
I don't see her there. Mary Ellen is not on the call yet, and David Gelman's not on the call yet. All right. Mary Ellen, Georgia, David. All right. And then from the agencies, we've got Keith Kalb, Holly Malone, and Rochelle Brahalia. Oh, Brahalia with 2 L's. Brahala. All right. Hopefully I have not completely mangled your name too much.
Can't do any worse than I do with everybody's name.
All right, well, let's start with the approval of the minutes of the meeting of May 19th. Which were distributed to the committee members ahead of the meeting. Does anybody have any changes? Right, so if there are no objections, I move to approve the minutes by unanimous consent. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, the minutes of May 19th, 2022 committee meeting have been unanimously approved. So I'll go to the chair's report. And I just want to thank everyone who submitted paving requests. We got a few more in the last couple of weeks since our last meeting. So we're busy getting them submitted into DOT, and then we'll get them all prioritized. I did want to say 2727 Palisade Avenue had reached out to the board to request that the DOT pay special attention to crowning to make sure that the water is being directed towards the catch basins. We had received confirmation that they are evaluating their paving options, and they will reach back out to the board once they know the scope of their project. Keith, is there any? I'll take advantage of the fact that you're on the call to see if there's any update.
No update yet.
Okay, great, thank you. Just a piece of news, which is just the southbound Major Deegan Expressway. 2 lanes, the left lane and the middle lane between West 230th Street and West Fordham Road will be closed to traffic. They've actually been closed to traffic for a couple of days now. June 6th through the 9th is when they will be closed from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then on June 11th from 1 a.m. to 6:30. And that's because DEP is cleaning the water catchments to give them better resilience during heavy rainfall, which we know definitely is a thing. Also, the MTA has released new bus maps and schedules. So if you're here, I have their press release right here. Let's read off of their second. It's for the redesigned Bronx local bus network. It is available on the website, and we will also include the link for it in the minutes. So if you are interested in that, you can get it off of the minutes, or just Google it and you'll be able to find it pretty quickly. So any questions about any of those things? All right, great. So then we'll go right into the presentation by DOT of planned pedestrian safety improvements at Manhattan College Parkway and Delafield Avenue. I can just turn it right over to you if you'd like. Do you want to share screen?
Yeah, Rochelle.
All right, I'm going to allow you to share screen. There you go.
Yeah. Great. Can you all see the beginning slide of this presentation?
Yes.
Awesome. And can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay, please let me know if my audio cuts out. Thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Rochelle Brahala. I'm the Assistant Director of School Safety. We are a Vision Zero unit inside the New York City Department of Transportation that's dedicated to improving traffic safety outcomes for students on their way to and from school. So we were alerted to this location at the intersection of Manhattan College Parkway and Delafield Avenue via a community request. And we're excited to share our proposal for that intersection with you tonight. So this intersection is currently a kind of a large, complex intersection that is largely unmarked. It's located next to the Fieldston School, which has a fairly large student population. As you can see, there are no markings on the street. There are a few pedestrian facilities. As I said, this was alerted to us by community request to evaluate this complex intersection for safety improvements. Although the request did not originate with the school is very supportive of this proposal. And we've been working with them through the design and development. And they agree for a need for greater pedestrian facilities and infrastructure here at this intersection. Additionally, this intersection was recently approved for a stop control for westbound traffic on Manhattan College Parkway. So currently, eastbound traffic is stopped with a blinking red light and a stop sign. However, in the current condition, westbound Manhattan College Parkway traffic is not halted. Yes, we now do have the authorization to put in a stop control here for westbound traffic, and that will hopefully make things a little bit more organized and will allow us to propose some additional pedestrian improvements. While we were on site, we noticed that there were high pedestrian volumes, particularly during school dismissal. We saw long crossing distances and limited pedestrian infrastructure. This kind of behavior that we're seeing here, which is pedestrians walking through the intersection with very little rhyme or reason, highlights a level of unpredictability that we see here at the intersection, since there are very few markings for pedestrians and motorist vehicles. We are kind of alerted to the fact that there may be some conflicts that could be potentially dangerous for school-age pedestrians. So in our proposal, we definitely want to organize the roadway a little bit more and provide some clearer circulation patterns for both vehicles and pedestrians. In our proposal, we're proposing new crossings as well as pedestrian spaces and channelization to organize the roadway and new pedestrian ramps. And I'll kind of go through each improvement one by one. So here we're proposing, so north to south, we're proposing a crossing and new pedestrian ramps across Delafield Avenue. We're also proposing a crossing on either side of Manhattan College Parkway, and on this side that includes Henry Hudson Parkway East. This side of the crossing includes a large pedestrian space, channelization, as well as another pedestrian space and channelization that are attached to these kind of informal medians. We also have pedestrian space along this section of Delafield Avenue, which at the moment does not have any it actually has parking restrictions, so there's no parking here. And we're also adding a crosswalk here at the east leg of the intersection on Manhattan College Parkway. This is the new stop control that we see here. So this is what was recently approved, and this stop control is existing. We'll be adding new ADA compliant pedestrian ramps here. Currently, there are 2 ramps that are not in compliance, but with the upgrade of the crossings, we will be adding new pedestrian ramps on each end of each of the crossings here. We're also proposing a new crossing in daylighting at the bottom of Manhattan College Parkway eastbound as it splits from Henry Hudson Parkway East. This will provide a necessary crossing for pedestrian traffic that's traveling along Henry Hudson Parkway East and needs to cross the street to access a sidewalk on this side of Manhattan College Parkway. There's no sidewalk currently on the exterior side of Manhattan College Parkway here. So in order for folks to be able to safely access pedestrian infrastructure, they will need this crossing down here. This is an example of an intersection that was similarly multi-leg, wide, has a lot of moving parts that was normalized and simplified with a pedestrian space. So this provides a certain amount of refuge for pedestrians. It increases pedestrian visibility, and it also improves pedestrian and vehicular circulation. It makes things a lot more predictable, and we're able to prioritize pedestrians where they need to be prioritized. This proposal includes somewhat of a parking impact. We believe that the trade-offs here are totally necessary. We believe that this pedestrian infrastructure is really important and necessary at this site. The impact will be 3 parking spaces. So 1 spot here for tunnelization and 2 spots down here for crosswalk and daylighting. So that's our proposal. Again, we think that this is a really necessary project in an area that really doesn't have a lot of pedestrian infrastructure, and we're excited to hear your thoughts and receive your feedback.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for all of that, Rochelle. I've got a few questions myself. Let me start with, is the work that you're planning on doing, is it going to be mostly delineators and tote paint? Or were you actually planning on putting in curbing and things like that?
So yeah, so in this proposal, we are proposing paint and delineators. In the future, we would hope to come back with more concrete elements, but for now, we would be coming in with paint for the most part.
Okay, and then if you can stay at that drawing. So at Henry Hudson Parkway East, you're adding the crosswalk there down on the bottom left. I didn't realize that was part of this, so I didn't look at it when I was doing my own site visit. On Henry Hudson Park East, on the west side of it, is there a sidewalk along Henry Hudson Parkway East there? Yeah.
On this side?
Yes,
Yes,
there's
there
a
is.
sidewalk.
So is there a crosswalk on the westbound entrance ramp there?
On this entrance
Oh,
ramp?
there, and the one that's just south of that, the other two, basically.
So this is actually a bridge. Manhattan College Parkway kind of goes over Henry Hudson Parkway here. And then,
I got it, okay.
And then there's no crossing currently. I believe that there are ped ramps, but there's no crossing.
That's
So
correct.
that would be at level, then they would go under the Henry Hudson the Manhattan College Parkway Bridge, and then they would come to Henry Hudson Parkway East, and then is there a crosswalk there?
That's a great question. I do believe that there is. Actually, Keith, are you familiar?
There's a stop control there. I have to double check and see if there's a marked crosswalk. If not, we can mark it.
Yeah, that seems like absolutely, we don't want to create
So
it
that is
while we're at it.
that is
Yeah.
already controlled, so it should already have a crosswalk. But we can double check. If it's not, we'll include it.
Okay. And then have you, this is the boundary with Fieldston and the homeowners association. Have you been working with them about the plan?
We
with the
have
plan?
not gone to them yet.
Okay,
We are coming to you first.
okay.
And assuming there's no objections, we'll coordinate with them.
Because I know that, just for transparency, the board office did reach out to them and we sent them the plan.
Oh,
We just
great.
haven't heard back from them in any way that I'm aware of. So, but we wanted to make sure that they were aware. And then Delafield, I see actually here on this map, it shows, I think Delafield is a one-way. On the other drawing, it had Delafield as a 2, and when I was just over there, I noticed that it was now a one-way going north. So, okay, so this is updated. And then brush. So there's a lot of overgrowth on Henry Hudson Parkway. Like the visibility is not so good, but there's just a lot of overgrowth. Yeah, exactly, right in there. Are you going to be doing anything to cut that back or to improve the visibility? I mean, not to cut, I don't want to cut down trees, but just to trim back weeds and lower shrubs and stuff like that.
We can ask Parks. We don't touch trees.
Right.
We can ask the Parks Department to take a look at it.
Okay. All right. So I guess those are all my questions so far. I open the floor to Ed.
Hey, okay, so I have a few questions. So Rochelle, you mentioned that there was a community request for this. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that. Who requested it? How many people requested it? What possible organizations requested it? Just could you elaborate on what type of community request it was for this project?
Sure. So it was a single individual who requested it. I don't believe that they were a part of any larger organization. And they mentioned all the things that I described. So the wide unmarked intersection, the fact that it's heavily populated by students during arrival, but mostly during dismissal times, and that there was a concern for traffic safety, a concern about speeding and a lack of control for vehicles. When we spoke to the school, they agreed. They were in agreement and they were really supportive of our design development. And so we briefed them not too long ago, I think a couple of weeks ago, and they're also in support.
Okay, do you have any idea if, was that single individual a resident in an area resident? Do you know?
Unfortunately, I have no way of knowing. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Also, speaking of residents, Deb, I don't know if you touched on this. I zoned out there for a second. Was there any notice to residents about this project?
Well, that was one of the reasons we reached out to the association, because I mean, the good news about this particular area is that on the south is Fieldston, which we'd reached out to with Fieldston, the school, and then which DOT has already been working with. And then the north side is the association. So we were hoping that they would reach out to the association, the members more directly.
We
But-
plan on it.
Yeah. But that's the limit of the outreach to the residents.
And the
Okay,
community
good.
board.
Right, because I mean, I've never seen such a sparse crowd for a TNT meeting as tonight, so I just wondered if more residents were notified about this and had it, just to give them an opportunity to raise their concerns at some point, whether this could possibly be redone, this presentation, or,
Well, the presentation will be on our website after tonight's meeting, like we do with all our presentations. And so we come to the community board with the understanding that the community board represents the residents of the community board. And so we present it to you guys. We will put it on our website. And then if there's follow-up questions from residents in the area, we'll meet with them or have conversations with them. That's not a problem.
Okay, and the other question is, looking at this diagram of the proposal, I see I thought they were these, you mentioned that they were going to be flexible delineators here. Just from the diagram, looking at it, it looks, well, that I'm glad you just put that up, because that is what it appeared to me by looking at that, like that concrete platform. So you're stating it's not going to be a concrete
That's not
platform?
concrete, that's paint.
That is paint. Oh,
It's just
okay.
paint, yeah.
Bad eyes, I guess. I guess.
It's meant to mimic concrete.
It does a good job because it's okay, so that's going to be flexible delineators there to create those pedestrian spaces. Now, as far as I see in the other diagram that the road is narrowed considerably. So I was wondering if you guys did any type of assessment of the traffic flow that goes through there at particular, especially at the busier times, and what type of traffic flow goes in there, because it just seems like the roads are considerably narrowed by those spaces that are walled off by the delineators. So if there's excess amounts of traffic going through, that could be problematic. So I don't know if you guys have assessed that.
They're all one lane roads, so we're not narrowing it less than one lane. So there should be no impact on travel times. We're just narrowing that one lane to the standard size.
Okay, and you mentioned that the parking impact, you guys did a study and stated that it would lose 3 spaces.
Correct. One basically that's the beginning of the bridge, and then the 2 that need to be installed at the ped ramps and the daylighting at the tip of the Henry Hudson Parkway East on the south piece.
Okay, thank you.
And just FYI, I just checked the other side, the north side, the Henry Hudson Parkway East north corner, there is already a stop control there and a stop bar. We can look at installing an additional crosswalk there. That's not a problem.
Mhm.
If that's the recommendation of the board. Although I'm not sure, but we'd have to check where the ped ramp is, but that might lose another spot because I don't know exactly.
Mm.
We'd have to measure. The location that I looked at online looked like it was covered with snow, so I can't tell. I can't really tell what the regs are there.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, Deb.
okay. And Kelly, you've got your hand up.
Yes. So my question is a piggyback off of Ed's question, where he discussed the parking. My concern also is that, one, this meeting does not appear to be heavily attended, so it gives me pause to vote on anything like this. But I will also mention, as someone who attended the Fieldston School and as someone who uses this area here, most of the people who use these parking spaces that you're proposing or taking out are individuals that are on the other side of Henry Hudson Parkway, right? Because most of the people that are within the Fieldston Homeowners Association, they all have private parking, and that is not impacted, and they will not be impacted by this. So we need to really reach out to all of the constituents, because there are several high rises on the opposite side of Manhattan College Parkway over there that will be impacted by the removal of these parking spaces.
Is there anything else, Kelly?
No, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay. So, are there any follow-up questions regarding this? So, I, from my own point of view, I'll say that I think that was the first to almost kind of piggybacks on what Kelly's saying, that the first thing that came to my mind with the loss of the parking spaces is that you could almost, it's hard to pick an area where it would be less felt, because the folks who live in Fieldston have their own private parking, and because DOT has already been working with Fieldston. So if my first thought was really for Fieldston staff, if they were going to have issues with parking, but if they're supportive of this and that they feel like it's worth having an additional bit of safety, especially when you consider like Manhattan College Parkway and that Hudson, where people are kind of coming off of Henry Hudson Parkway East, they're usually coming somewhat fast. I mean, it's pretty tight. You can't see very well in that area. So that it seems to me like a fine trade-off to get a lot more structure so that it's easier for students to cross the street. Like, I don't really, I think this would be a nice addition to the community, because there's a lot of folks who walk, especially on the weekends, through Fieldston, and that, and people are coming and going to the school. So, I mean, I take your point that there are not a lot of people on this call, but I think it's also kind of speaks to the fact that the Fieldston Association people didn't seem alarmed by this request.
Okay, and I take that point, Deb, but I also know too that we typically receive notices that says reminder notices about meetings, and there was not a reminder notice sent for this meeting. So usually on the day of or the day before, there are reminder notices that are sent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see any of those notices in any of my email boxes. So that gives me pause.
Let me look here, because I thought I got something.
I got something last week, but I didn't get anything this week.
Right. Because I mean, I'll be honest, I totally just went from work to here.
I didn't get anything either, Deb, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything either. And actually, when I couldn't sign on right at 7 o'clock, I went all the way back to June 1st, as I think Kelly is alluding to make sure there was a meeting tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything in my inbox either. So I guess the question is this, Keith, when are you planning to do this work? What is your time frame?
We are, Rochelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is a summer 22 project.
Right.
That's right.
Because I think the issue here is that, I'm not talking to Keith, I'm talking to the committee, that this is our last Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. So we could do a resolution and make it contingent on the approval of the Fieldston Homeowners Association or something like that. To Kelly's point, that there's no way except to postpone this until September, to have more notice to folks who are on the other side of the Henry Hudson Parkway. Though I think the one thing that is of saving grace here is that this really is taupe paint and delineators. So if there are issues, it's not the end of the world. We can make adjustments as we need to. If any part of this makes it more difficult for vehicles to get through the intersection, or if there's a real outcry over like some of the parking, particularly the parking right there off of Henry Hudson Parkway East. I have a feeling that there's not going to be much of a complaint about it. would be usually when we do these things and they're already out in the world, nobody misses the parking spot then. It's just really looking at it right now. One thing I would ask though, is that one spot for channelization, is that necessary? Can we save that spot? Yeah.
Yeah, so this spot, I actually just checked the drawing. I double checked the drawing today when I was putting this together. So this spot is necessary for turning movements for larger vehicles. So in order for them to kind of make this tight turn here, we do need this channelization to ensure that a parked vehicle here isn't clipped by a delivery truck, like a FedEx truck or a UPS truck. We can reassess and see if that can change, but I think as is, we've toyed with it a few different ways, and I think this is the minimum.
Is it
that we can
possible
get
to make that island a little bit less wide?
Right.
I mean, you're making
Potentially.
it, yeah, it's making it kind of, you're making the pinch point, because of the width of that pedestrian island.
Certainly, yeah, we can play around with the configuration and see what we can come up with. Yeah.
Because if we could save that space, I mean, that would be helpful. I wasn't sure if it was there for daylighting purposes, but it didn't seem like it based on the direction of the traffic, because the traffic is going the other way.
Yeah, let us play around and see what we can do. Yeah.
Ed?
Well, I mean, what you're discussing right now is my concern about narrowing the road. And Keith mentioned that they're all one lane, but that's a perfect example of right there where that, comes into play, narrowing the road. If you have to think about tinkering with some of the designs to ensure that cars don't get clipped, then narrowing the road does have an effect, whether it's a single lane or not. That's really not why I raised my hand. I raised my hand because, as far as any type of resolution is concerned, well, actually, the question would be to Keith is, for DOT, let's just assume that some type of objection came up within the community. You stating that this is a summer 22 project. That's kind of it's kind of vague, but I mean, you probably don't have a direct date. But so this is gonna all occur before we come back in session in September. So assuming, let's say there's some type of some blind spot that we're missing here, or some type of large community objection to this project, how would you guys in the intern in this summer period before the work starts address this with the community or whatever parties were concerned? How would that work?
Not quite sure I understand the question.
Okay, so let's say an objection comes up in the community about this after tonight that we weren't aware of previously, and now they're going. What's the process from there? How do they bring it to you? How does this get undone if there's some type of overwhelming objection to this?
I mean, I can't foresee any overwhelming objection. Most of the parking spots are due to the installation of a crosswalk.
Right. I don't
we
see
can
it either.
we can install a crosswalk without the community board's blessing. This is really a courtesy to the community board. And so those two spots, we're going to install that crosswalk regardless, especially on the Henry Hudson Parkway East Manhattan College Parkway piece. And the other spot, the one spot for the channelization, we can see if we can narrow that other piece, and if it works, it works.
Okay, so what you're saying is that there's no room for community objection.
There's always room for community objection from any community, and we work closely with all the community boards to make sure that we balance the need of all of our roadway users, including pedestrians and vehicles. But we always prioritize pedestrians over vehicles. And so if the complaint is, well, it's unfair for us to lose one parking spot to benefit pedestrian safety, it's a hard argument for me to sort of accept as like a real concern.
Well, I'm sorry to take up your time. Well, my concern is not,
Kelly, I'm done.
it's not whether or not you're taking up one two spaces, right? It's looking at the community in its entirety. And there are so many other projects that are going on within the community that to do this at this juncture, it just isn't fair to the community. And you're basically saying you want community input, but you're saying to us that it's going to happen whether we agree with it or not, right?
No, that's not what I'm
I'm
saying.
saying-
I'm not saying it's going to happen whether you agree with it or not. I'm saying is that at least for the crosswalk on the Henry Hudson Parkway there in Manhattan College, that crosswalk is missing. And we're planning to install it. So those two spots are really not up
So
for debate. They're not
You're
up
saying
for
those two spots
discussion.
are not negotiable, right?
Essentially, yes, that's correct.
Right, so you're
That's
not really then seeking, community input. You're telling us that this is going to happen. But
Those-
when
that
we
So,
look
crosswalk,
at,
correct.
but Kelly, just to stop for a second, I think there's the DOT's come to, I asked them to come to talk about
Right.
this project because there are, like, they're coming, this is what they plan on doing. They've been working with the school. The school is a major stakeholder. They're working with the school on this project. That there are small things, though, that we can do to make this better. And that, I think, has to be the focus, such as can we preserve that one spot for channelization? Can we make that island a little smaller, making sure this isn't concrete curbing where we know we had stormwater issues before, getting that pedestrian crosswalk at the other end so that people could walk all the way from north-south. Like, those are the things that we can add to this. That's the kind of feedback they're looking
Exactly.
for. But they're going to be doing this work because this is what they do. They're responsible for the
Deb,
roads,
I get that, and I appreciate your explanation, right? But I'm also looking at the myriad complaints that we receive from the community with everything else that's going on between the Con Edison, construction that's always going on, the Verizon construction, the, the other DOT construction that's going on. At some point, enough is enough, right? And it's almost as though we're not listening to what the community is saying to us.
Well, but the community
my
also
concern.
would complain if they didn't have Verizon and they didn't have electricity, that there's gonna,
Or
that
safe
stuff is,
crossings.
or safe crossings.
And the
And that's what's
sidewalk
under the
has a-
streets,
And I'm not debating you on whether or not we need safe crossings, right? That's a non-starter. I think everyone on this call would agree, right? But I think what is of concern is how these things are always done, in my experience, and how it's communicated to the community. And I think we all need to do better with that.
Okay, and your point's taken. I appreciate that. I mean, it would be great if there were more people involved on this call, 100%. And I had kind of hoped that even if somebody from the Fieldstone School would be on the call, but I understand too that they're busy and they're at work all day, and this is an after hours thing for them. I want to thank DOT for coming. It's also apparently the same time zone at DOT, and so it's 7:38 p.m. on a Wednesday. I think it's a Wednesday. I guess the question for us is, do we want to take a position on this and have a resolution one way or the other, or do we not want to take a resolution and and thank DOT for coming and explaining it to us and see where we are in September? I think, Ed, do you have your hand up?
That was from before, but I'll comment on it anyway. I would be inclined to abstain from voting on any resolution myself.
Mhm.
My only concern is, okay, if we don't have any resolution, which I probably don't feel we shouldn't have a resolution, but if we don't, then we come back in September, this is done. I think, DOT aside, just community board stuff, I think, we should, place the emphasis on trying to reach out to the community and getting a little more input on what, their feelings are about this, and then assess it from there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it would, for me, I feel a little bit uncomfortable. I think one of the funny things about this meeting, and you called it out, Ed, is that there's almost no one on it, which never really happens. And so our norm is that, we listen to the public, we have a meeting, there's usually at least, 5 people from the community that have an opinion about it that help sway us. And the institutions that have been working on a project also help sway us, and they inform us on kind of what the temperature is. But if we don't have very many people or anyone really from the community here to talk about it, we have to kind of assume the DOT's been working with Fieldstone. And then maybe, and we will continue to reach out to Fieldstone's Property Owners Association. And if they express any concerns or don't like the process, then we can come back and say, you know, we have an issue here, and advocate with them, you know, the way we always do.
Right.
There's other channels to kind of support the community's needs over the summer.
Yeah, just from taking a look at it, I mean, it doesn't appear like there's anything catastrophic going on in my eyes, but however, I can't support, you know, saying, yeah, let's go ahead and do this without having some, you know, more information from people who live there and deal with this, you know, situation. And, you know, what are we missing? You know, that's always my thing, so.
And maybe what we can do too is that I can ask Kira and Laura if they can include this in like one of the summer newsletters, just so people know that it's coming. And that way we can get ahead of it a little bit. And if we have any concerns, we can feed that stuff back to Keith before he's also, you know, spent people hours putting taupe paint down, you know, and you know, and then have people upset. That would also, I think, help probably with his outreach. Right, because I mean, I know that's been an important part of what DOT is trying to do better. So, but how do you, Kelly? What do you think about that? Like having this information included in like the Community Board 8 newsletter, so that everybody's aware of it. Maybe with a line saying, you know, contact the board office if you have concerns.
I'm okay with that, but I would really like to, I know they said summer 2022, summer 2022 is here. So
oh yeah, it's going to happen in the next month or two.
The next month, right? It could
Yeah.
in theory happen in the next month, and I still don't think we've given the community enough notice on something that's going to impact them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I would suggest putting it in the community board
I mean,
letter or
that's
in the
fine.
just so that
That's
they know.
fine. I think that's another way, but you know, ideally, you know, I think we need to do better going forward.
Mhm. I mean, we've also included it on the Facebook page. I mean, that's something we've done too sometimes when we want to get additional, like the Deegan information, for example, went out on Facebook. So we can also try to make sure that it goes out there. So it's just more widely distributed. Okay.
Deb, we can share with you tomorrow morning the link
Okay,
of
that would
this
be great.
presentation that'll be on our website, so that you can share with all the board members and all the different avenues that you guys do outreach to the community stakeholders.
Okay, that would be great.
You know, I'm just going to mention also that something nobody mentioned, that this is what we hear a lot of times from residents too, is the whole aesthetics of it. So it's, you know, that I know that area. I'm very familiar with the area. Actually, I used to play in a band in one of the basements right in your presentation picture. But it's, you know, it's a beautiful area, and it's a very wide open street, and that would right there. Yep. So who knows? I mean, it's, and that's a perfect illustration of how people just kind of freely walk across the street. And I don't, you know, I've never heard any issues of there being any pedestrian safety issues there. That's another thing that we didn't bring up. What type of traffic studies have been done that there actually is any? I mean, you know, Rochelle said that there was a single individual who made this request, and DOT just took it up. So, you know, that raises a few red flags to me. And you know, just by that illustration, it was just always a nice place to just, people could just walk around kind of freely, and there was never any incident. So, you know, all these, all the, this calling for this change, I just, you know, wonder if there's any deeper motivations, you know, I don't know. That's it.
I will say
Yeah.
that we do get a lot of requests at school safety, and we don't always take action on all of them. So this one was really important to us because there was such a lack of pedestrian infrastructure here and such a lack of connection. You know, if it didn't pose potential safety threats, then we wouldn't have even created a proposal. But the fact that we see this really alarms us. You know, and like, not touch wood that nothing catastrophic has happened here, but this could be an accident waiting to happen. So we want to make sure that we're proactive in our approach.
So Michelle, can you tell me like when roughly the time frame that you received the request for the safety improvement here?
Yeah, so we received a request in 2018 or 2019, I believe.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, the pandemic delayed some of our traffic studies, specifically the ones that determined that we can do a stop control at this westbound intersection. We were waiting for pedestrian traffic to resume at Fieldston since they were largely remote or hybrid for much of 2020 and 2021. So with the return of in-person school, we were able to continue with those studies in late 2021 and receive the approval in early 2022.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because to go back to Kelly's point about just equity, I mean, I know that the New York City Streets Plan has 3 criteria for the prioritization of investment. And a big part of it is, I'm trying to think what's called, it's equity, density, and the previous level of New York City DOT investment. So have you gotten to the point, like when do we start with projects that have that kind of priority, I guess is my question. Because we have if we look at the map, the streets plan map, this is the lightest lavender. This is a tier 3 neighborhood where we have half of the district is a tier 1 neighborhood. And things like the Sedgwick Avenue, Van Cortlandt Avenue West intersection, or parts of Bailey Avenue, which we talked about, or even like Kingsbridge Road. There's a lot of other intersections, a lot of other schools, frankly, that have more traffic, or I mean, like the Van Cortlandt Avenue South intersection has already has had a fatality and has like pretty heavy school traffic. I don't expect you to know every intersection in our community board, but I'm just wondering, when do projects start getting prioritized with equity and density and previous capital investments as the prioritization? When will we see those?
Yeah, so it gets prioritized at many levels, and school safety, in addition to the streets bog prioritization, has an internal metric for understanding how youth are injured on the streets as well. And so while this project doesn't fit within our highest priority, we still want to make room for projects that pose potential safety threats. And so again, seeing this intersection, this really jumps out at us as a really potential safety threat for students like this who are crossing in the middle of the intersection without a lot of visibility. So we have kind of an internal measure of the amount of resources that we're investing in these areas. We are very intentional about how we cite our projects, but we don't want that to limit us in doing preventative work. So it's possible that one intersection could be potentially dangerous or potentially deadly in an area like Riverdale that doesn't necessarily have the criteria that other neighborhoods in the Bronx would. That being said, since you do know every intersection in your community board, we would love to hear from you about other intersections that you believe are higher priority so that we can investigate them ourselves and develop projects if they're high enough priority. But yeah, hopefully that sheds light on our internal and external process.
And Deb, just to talk about Bailey, we're already starting to look at that.
Right. Okay.
Because you requested that already from us.
Well, we haven't done a request yet because we haven't done any kind of resolution. But like Van Cortlandt Avenue South and Van Cortlandt Avenue West and Sedgwick, we did do a resolution about that particular intersection, and it's actually also a school intersection. Which
one is that? I'm sorry.
That's the Van Cortlandt Avenue West and Sedgwick Avenue. That's where we had a fatality there at one point. It's a very confusing traffic pattern because there's some traffic. If you want to stay on Sedgwick, you have to be in one lane, and if you want to turn to go onto Van Cortlandt Avenue West, you need to be in another. There's a lot of last minute lane changes, and that we've actually had a priority of school crossing guard as a budget capital priority or expense priority for many years because we really need them there. We have one, but it's not there all the time. Ed, do you want to talk? I see your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one last question about this Manhattan College Parkway in Delafield. Did DOT do any research on accidents there, and what if you did, what type of data do you have available for us tonight on pedestrian accidents and vehicular accidents in this area?
Yeah, so since 2014, there have been no fatalities here, thank goodness. And in the past 4 or 5 years, there also have not been any injuries. Again, we've seen intersections like this in other areas of the Bronx, I did a project at McCombs Road and University Ave that was similarly wide open, unmarked. That was miraculously there were no injuries or reported injuries there. That doesn't mean that it's not a potential safety threat. It just means that something hasn't happened yet. So again, we're very driven by Vision Zero and by crash and injury history. However, we don't want to rule out locations that could be potential safety threats, and we don't want to wait until something terrible happens to act.
So do you have any schools currently that you're working with on intersections or safety programs?
Very
Yeah.
localized. So is that what you mean?
I mean, in our community board, are there any other school safety programs that where you're working with a school? Because I mean, I can think of several other intersections where if you look at, you look at the crash data, you're going to see all kinds of folks getting hit by cars and they're directly in front of schools.
Yeah, we would love to be aware of those intersections. So our approach is always to approach the school first as a stakeholder, understand, how they view their area, what safety concerns they have, and kind of go from there in our design and development process. So yeah, any intersection that you have that is of interest, please send it through Keith and we can take a look at it.
So you don't look at the information independently. You're waiting for the school or community board or a city council person to make a recommendation?
We do both. It's kind of it's a balancing act for sure. So we do a lot of we do a lot of project identification before a request, or like in the absence of a request. So we're looking at those priority areas. We're developing, projects that have more concrete or more protected bike lanes. However, we do have to also balance requests because we're unable to catch everything. Unfortunately, we don't have eyes everywhere. And so that's where community requests can really come in handy, is identifying specific locations that are helpful for us.
Okay. Ed, do you have your hand up for this?
It was from before, but I'd just like to kind of reply on what
Yeah.
Joe said. So since 2014, there's been no injuries and no fatalities at this location, but the project is being proposed because someone has concerns. Is that what I'm getting out of this?
DOT has concerns, the school has concerns, a community member has concerns. So yes, all of those people have concerns about this intersection.
Plus the intersection met the warrants for a stop sign. So we're going to be installing the crosswalks to assist with that. So yes.
Yeah.
And the ped ramps.
Right. It sounds like it's a basic geometry that they expect. I mean, it's obvious. You look at it, that you don't even know where to begin to cross the road.
Right.
So you're going to have a lot of people crossing in different places, which then makes it difficult for cars to anticipate where a pedestrian might be. So, okay. Any other questions or for the DOT? All right. Well, I guess that's it then. We'll move on to our next agenda item, but I want to thank you all everyone at DOT for coming on a Wednesday night to make this presentation. It was really helpful and it was good to get your feedback and and to provide feedback on the proposal. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Deb, for having us. Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right.
Good night, thanks.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
summer.
Good night.
Thank
You
too.
too.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Wear a bike helmet.
I'm wearing one right now. It looks like hair. All right. So our next resolution is actually a request for a street activity permit for Kingsbridge Terrace Community Block Party. Is there anybody on the call that is here to speak to this? Larry, are you here to speak to this? Well, let me give you the details that I know. That we were going to have some parents from the group were supposed to come to speak about it. It is a request for a full street closure of Kingsbridge Terrace between West Kingsbridge Road and West 230th Street. It's for an event. It's a block party on August 13th, 2022. Let me pull up the calendar really quick. See what day of the week that is. It is a Saturday. Setup begins at 9 a.m. The event itself starts at 10:30 and would end at 5 o'clock. And then breakdown would be by 6. And then the event was previously held on August 7th of last year. we asked the precinct if there were any issues with the event when they did it last year, and they said that the organizers were very, very cooperative. So they didn't seem to have any concerns about the organizers. I guess they're all family members, parents who live on that stretch of Kingsbridge Terrace. So this one we do need to we do need to do a resolution because it's a street permit. I mean, I'm inclined to pass it, even though it would have been much better to have these folks here. I can say that Terrence Lindsay, who's one of the folks who's been very active on Kingsbridge Terrace, has had problems with some internet stuff in the past. So that may be why he's not on the call today. But he had said that he was gonna, or somebody from this organization said they were gonna be on. So I can actually, if you want me to pull up the permit or the application, and we can go over the details of that. We want to just do a resolution, we can do that. Where are you in terms of comfort level for approving something when they don't show up? I mean, I don't want to get in the, personally, I would approve it because I don't want to get in the way of the event happening. And I know we're going to be going on summer recess, so. Committee.
Me personally, I don't know anything about it. Nobody's here to present it. It could be something that you know, people are dreading in the neighborhood. I don't know. I can't vote with good conscience on this without having any information on it.
Well, all we have is
Or
yeah,
a minute amount of information and no input, I should say.
we have the application. That's what we have. We know there'll be a bouncy house and such. Yeah.
Yeah, Deb, is there a way that they could, we can extend an invitation to them to come to the full board meeting to present?
Good thought.
I mean, it would have to, that would be up to Laura, I think, essentially. I think the fear is that there's a fairly packed agenda with the June meeting because we have to do elections and everything. But I don't mean, maybe Laura would be open to it. It's just, there's not a lot of, you can't have discussion at the full board meeting, really.
Yeah, I get that, but again, you know, back to our earlier point where this seems woefully underattended, you know, here. So I think that someone may have dropped the ball at some point with sending out reminders to individuals.
Well, I would say that this may not be this may be the group itself. They've had trouble getting on meetings and stuff in the past. So
I understand that, and you have more of a history with the group, right? But I'm looking at it from a holistic perspective, right? And saying that historically we receive reminders for meetings. That did not happen. And especially since our meeting is typically later in the month, so individuals may have calendared it for the wrong date, but the meeting date moved. Right. So I think it's incumbent upon us to give the people who are making the request of us to give them an opportunity to present it to the board.
But I can't speak for Laura but this kind of conversation is generally not done at the board level for a street permit. Because
I get it, but we have no information. And
well, we have the application.
We have the application, but you know, we would still typically when these things are done, you know, there's someone from the organization available to present it, and we don't have that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Are there questions? I think the thing we have to ask ourselves is, are there specific concerns that we can't answer with the application or with the history that cause us to want to say no, or like to not feel comfortable to pass a resolution to support it? You know, is there anything about this specific? I mean, I understand it's not ideal.
Well, my first question, Deb, would be, what do the residents feel about it? Is this something that they want? I mean, this could be something that, you know, I would overwhelmingly support if the people in the neighborhood want it. If the people in the neighborhood say, no, this is, you know, not something we approve of, then, you know, that changes the thing drastically.
Well, yeah, you and me both. I would love to have, you know, more members of the community, but oftentimes we don't. I mean, even for the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center Farmers Market, you know, that is a very well attended event that happens every weekend. And yet we had one person who was the presenter who would come on. And so I think even in the best of times, we would only have one person come from the group to answer questions.
Right. The difference
Um,
with James Baldwin, though, is we've had that in previous years, and it's been successful and it's been well received. This is something that's kind of a one-shot deal, if I'm not mistaken. That's
They
just,
did it last year.
did they? Okay,
Mhm.
I wasn't aware of that.
And we talked to the precinct, and the precinct didn't have any complaints last year.
You want to put up the application?
Sure. So, oh, here. Put up the application, you mean so everybody can see it?
Right.
Like looking at it. All right. So, all kids friendly stuff, water slides, 2 cotton candy machines, popcorn machine, games, parents making hot dogs, hamburgers, face painting, etc. Here's the times. Here's Terrence Lindsay, who I had hoped would be here. Oh,
Okay, so the exact location that's going to be shut down is going to be,
Kingsbridge Terrace between Kingsbridge Road and 230th. Right here.
That is a very narrow street.
Chris, what do you think? That's your territory.
That's a large swath of
That's a large-
roadway to be
right, that's a large-
closed.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that it'll be the whole section, but I mean, they do have a lot of stuff going on, face painting and all that.
And what is going to be left open for emergency vehicles? Because on a good day, it's very hard with all the double parking and stuff there for emergency vehicles to get through that area. So what provisions are being made to make sure that the area that they're using would allow for emergency vehicles?
I was like looking to see if they've put anything. Because, like when we did the street approval for the farmer's market on the pop-up farmer's market on Riverdale Avenue, they had a plan for that.
Yeah, but Riverdale Avenue is about 2.5 times the size of Kingsbridge Terrace.
Mhm. Yeah, I know, it's much wider.
But yeah,
Deb, has the
An
50th
event-
precinct weighed in on this at all?
Who's what?
Has the 50th precinct weighed in on this at all?
Well, that's what, the 50th precinct said that last year they didn't have any trouble with the organizers. I mean,
They said this recently.
yeah, they said this regarding this proposal, because that was my question for them. Let me see if I can find the exact quote. Because there were some kids or something.
I hate the fact that nobody's here to present this, but it's kind of hard to say no to an event for kids, especially if it was well received last year and the 50th precinct says it's okay. I'd almost have to say I would have to vote for this.
So what the 50th precinct said, Cesar Sala
Yeah.
said the general consensus was that the organizer was very cooperative, but there were members of the community that weren't.
That weren't.
So I don't know what that means. Another concern would be the time frame. The earlier, the better. And then they said they would just that there's just generally been an increase of violence in the general area.
Well,
But they would discuss things with Captain Gervin and confer with our NCO. And then we didn't hear back from them.
when he says that the members of the public weren't, what was the phrase you used? Cooperative or?
The members, the organizers were very cooperative, but there were members of the community that weren't. I assume those were kids, but probably they weren't. Who knows what they were? I don't know who they were.
I don't think so. I mean, that is Kingsbridge Terrace is a very busy street. It's a very small street, and to shut it down for that's like 6 blocks there, and that's a big deal for people and for such a long period of time. And there's no other way for people to get to their homes. So I could understand why some of the other community members were not cooperative.
But we don't know if that was why they weren't cooperative or if they just were.
Well, I don't know. We're
we don't know.
speculating at this point, right? But I'm saying I'm using, my standard. If I lived on that block, right? And I needed to get home, I needed to do my grocery shopping, take my groceries in, things of that nature.
Mhm.
That's a long time, and there's no real way for traffic to go down that block once it's closed.
I have a thought, I have a thought on this, and I don't know how people on this committee feel, but just generally, if this is something important for someone, this event, the organizers, for them to do, and it's not important enough for them to be here or have a representative for this here to get at least approval from this committee and this board for their festival or whatever you want to call it, then I think that it's not a bad thing for this committee to take a pass on this, just for that alone. Again, it's for kids. That's great. I feel like, okay, I could vote on this, especially if the 50th thing is all right. But now there's being some things raised about, potential, because I don't know what the issues were with the
Right.
you know what I mean?
I don't know what they mean by that
It's
little
like,
piece.
For this committee to just pass on this and just kind of kick it on, I'm fine with that, because nobody's here to represent it. So if this is that important to them, you'd figure they'd have somebody or a representative here. That's just kind of my take on it.
So when you say pass though, you don't mean a resolution opposed to it? You mean
No,
no
I
resolution at
mean
all
no
because we
resolution
have,
at all.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable with a resolution opposed to it because I don't want to
No,
oppose it. I mean, it seems like there's community support for it, but I agree with you, Ed. I mean, like it's frustrating that no one's here to actually speak to it.
There
Yeah.
are too many unknowns here. I couldn't consciously vote for this.
Would you, Kelly or Chris, would you want to vote against it though, or you just wanted to not vote at all and let the chips fall kind of where they will?
I'm inclined to not vote at all. And more, and to Ed's point, I agree that, if it's important to them, they would show up. But I also am of the belief that, somebody somewhere dropped the ball, because this meeting was not advertised, if you will. So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
that part. So.
Yeah, we didn't get the usual. I mean, I get too many emails for my own committee, for the public safety committee,
Yeah.
and for all these meetings, pretty much. I get, more notices than than I want, and to not get anything since that. I'm glad there was one link to this from a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever, because
Yeah.
I think that has something to do with it. I try to stay on top of this, being a committee chair. Not everybody does that. They respond to whatever pops up in their face for that day or that week. So that's why I really believe there's not a lot of people here today, that people weren't properly notified. And that's something we have to, I guess, address with the board.
Yeah, I mean, I also just think that it's June and a lot of people.
That has something to do with it too.
These are not controversial things at all.
We have 5 people here right now. This is not a typical TNT meeting. We've had, 250 people at one time. You know what I mean? It's just highly unusual.
I know if we want to talk about remote meetings now, we can totally just talk about hybrid meetings, remote meetings.
Oh, don't get me started with that.
Okay, well, so then I'm going to move on. So let's see here, we're closing this. Don't need that. So this new business or old business, any old business? None? New business? New business? All right. Well, so I the only piece I have, and it's not really new business to you all, is that this is the last Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting until September, and it is my last one for me as a chair. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you. It's been a tumultuous year, and I'll be honest, as you know, there are moments I haven't agreed with the resolutions, but that I really do think we had a really good process. I think we had a really good discussion, and I think we treated each other well, even under high pressure. And there's not a lot of folks who can handle having 200 people yelling and then having to make a resolution. So thank you all for that. I feel like I've been in a foxhole with all of you at times. So, there's a special bond. And so I just,
Thanks for being the chair. I know we haven't been, our minds haven't met on some of these projects, but I really like you personally. I think you know, good luck with whatever you're gonna do. And it's difficult, as we can, you know, there's a lot of emotions running high in these type of things with community members and DOT and you know, board members. So it is you know, it was a lot, and thank you for your you know, your effort here.
well, and to be clear, I am not leaving the board, and I wasn't really even planning on leaving the committee. I'm not planning on leaving the committee. I just have like work pressure. Like there's just been all this crazy stuff at work. So it's just, there's a lot when
I
you're
have
the
to say,
chair.
not to steal your thunder, but this is probably my last TNT meeting also, because my work schedule is changing at the end of this month. So I don't, as it looks now, I don't think I'll be able to come back due to my work schedule. So this is probably my last TNT meeting too. I've been on here for 4 years. You know, I work in transportation, and it was important for me to be on this committee. And I'd still like to if things work out right, but it doesn't appear that way at this moment. So
Well-
I enjoyed my time here.
Well, you should talk to the next chair, when who may be on the call, and to, you know, to see if you want to move the night, because right now we don't have a large committee. So this doesn't have to be written in stone for me. I'm open to other nights. I don't know how Chris feels, but that's usually one of the first questions that comes up is if you want to hold to the same night and time. So
I'm off Monday and Tuesday nights.
so if anybody wants to note that.
I think you should both. I think you should both get some Vicks for your throats. I'm
Oh,
very concerned.
exactly.
All right, well, and so if there's nothing else, I see Rosemary has joined us just as we're about to sign off. Rosemary, did you have anything you wanted to add? We were just doing new business.
Oh, no, I wanted to make, I was tied up with other things. I'm sorry. I just wanted to be here for your meeting. That's all. Just want to be here, and I'm sorry I was not able to get here sooner. So I have
Well-
nothing to add, and the best of wishes to you, Deb, and there you go.
Well,
And
thank
that's
you.
why-
You missed the fireworks.
Yeah, the
Oh, I'm
fireworks.
sorry. Okay, well.
The fireworks were just our brains trying to understand such a small, quiet meeting.
Mhm.
The
Story of my life, Deb. There you go.
sparks.
Best of wishes. Okay. Good
Yeah,
luck.
thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful summer, and I'll see you at the full board meeting in person. I'll be behind a mask, but you'll recognize my glasses. So I'll see you in the end of June.
Mhm.
All right.
Right,
Take
be
care.
safe until then.
Y'all.
Have a good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Hey, see you soon, Ed.
All right.